Okay, so are you ready for our next speaker? I certainly know that I am. Her name is Sandra Ciavarella. She's from Sydney and she's an amazing executive wellbeing coach and consultant. She uses a holistic approach to help people to fulfill what it is that they want to fulfill in every area of life. I'm really excited to share her with you today. I've known her now for a little while, and in every engagement that I have with her, I always feel better when I leave. She has the ability to be able to listen and then impart wisdom. And I know that she's going to help everybody on the summit today with her topic of elevating your self-awareness to restore your peace. Hey, Sandra.
Thank you, Grant. It's wonderful to be here. And thank you, everyone, for setting aside your valuable time to be here. This session is all about elevating your self-awareness to restore your peace. When we can see ourselves clearly, we can be more confident, creative, in control, and calmer. And we can build healthier relationships, and we can communicate effectively, make better decisions, and live a more fulfilling life. There is a wonderful quote by the 13th century Persian poet and scholar Rumi, which is recognize that unlearning is the highest form of learning. Before we were old enough to understand our emotions or express our needs, we had already digested hundreds of messages that would influence our authentic self. Throughout our childhood and teenage years, parents, teachers, extended family, siblings, and friends, they all shared their opinions about the views we believed and expressed, the emotions we experienced, the interests we had, and even who we spent our time with. That influence was consuming. Even the smallest of judgments that we received produced an imprint on our brains, and before we were old enough to critically analyze whether there is truth or importance in those judgments, or determine if they were right for us, they became embedded in our subconscious mind. It's not until much later in life, and generally when we have reached a crisis point or a crossroad, that we become aware of some of these messages that have unintentionally closed down parts of our authentic selves. They may have been designed to help us understand right and wrong, but what it's done is mold ourselves to fit other people's expectations. And so the pure, authentic, joyful, creative spirit we were born with may have become lost beneath layers of other people's expectations, our conforming behaviors, and even our self-developed fears. Most of us, though, still do have a sense of who we are, and also a sense when we are not being honest and true to ourselves. However, the more you explore your inner world, the more you'll become aware of how you show up in your outer world. Learning about ourselves is a lifelong process, and while our culture loves a quick fix, our lives are complex and worthy of exploration. So the better you can understand yourself, the better you can be. So let me ask, how self-aware are you? Take a moment to think about it. Most of us think that we are self-aware, but in fact, we're not. Though just asking and reflecting on this question is an example of self-awareness. So I'll also ask, how often do you find engaging or yourself engaging in this type of reflection? If you answered not often, then this talk is perfect for you. And if you answered all the time, then this talk is also perfect for you. Why? Because self-awareness is a skill that, like a muscle, needs a good workout to stay strong and flexible. And it starts with self-reflection. That's the process. And as you may have heard, wisdom comes through self-reflection. I remember a few years ago when attending a leadership conference, we were asked to break out into small groups and do a self-reflection exercise. Well, I can tell you, the first thing I felt was dread, and then a heavy knot in my stomach. Next, that internal voice saying, no. And that response was important data, which I didn't know at the time. However, later, after reflecting, it told me that I perceived this exercise as a threat. I realized I had a fixed mindset about it rather than a growth mindset. And that didn't sit comfortably with me because I'm a person who loves to study human cognition and behavior. hence why I have a psychology degree. However, focusing on others is a lot easier than focusing on myself. And at that moment, I understood something. I said to myself, Sandra, if you don't know yourself, then how do you expect anyone else to? How do you expect anyone to meet you where you need to be met? Or to understand and support you and your needs, ambitions, dreams, challenges? Elevating your self-awareness through self-reflection can be challenging and even scary. Most of us self-reflect with hesitancy at first. I mean, what if you realized something about yourself that you don't like? Or what if your secrets that have been buried deep down for so long surface? Most of us tend to think, if it's out of sight, then it's out of mind. But that couldn't be further from the truth. The fact is that we are still carrying the thought, the feeling, or the emotion around, which is draining our daily energy. And we only have a finite amount of energy to expend each day. When you lack self-awareness, it's difficult to identify what you're feeling and how those feelings manifest in your daily actions. You miss seeing the patterns in thinking and behaviors which can increase you and experiencing more negative emotions because you are unaware of how to better align your choices with what you want. And you can begin to run someone else's race and no longer your own. Comparison is the thief of joy. So if you always do what you've always done, then you'll always be what you've always been, or you will always have what you've always had. So what exactly is self-awareness? Well, there are quite a few definitions out there, but the one I found easiest to understand is that self-awareness is the ability to focus on yourself and how your actions, thoughts, or emotions do or don't align with your internal standards. And that's by objectively evaluating yourself, managing your emotions, aligning your behavior with your values, and understanding correctly how others perceive you. Today, we're going to cover quite a few self-awareness topics, not all of them. And I want to make this session an addition to your self-awareness toolbox and support you wherever you are in your self-awareness journey. So let's switch off from autopilot, take a nice slow deep breath, and step into a space of curiosity, not judgment, and explore something real and profound about yourself. To begin with, we're going to talk about purpose and values. So often we stop having deep conversations about purpose. And as adults, when we speak about purpose, we tend to frame our purpose in terms of the roles we play. For example, am I a manager? I'm an entrepreneur, a doctor, a parent? Or some of us may deflect and say that there is no overarching purpose to a human life. Questions such as, what am I doing here? What job should I have? How do I change things? Should I even be in this situation? These questions can only be answered with some reflection on purpose. Today, life is so fast for most of us. We live in a world of instant, and with so much information we absorb daily, the options are endless. And this in itself can cause decision fatigue, which is a real thing. As such, we can get swept up in the just being whatever society expects of us, fulfilling our roles, distracting ourselves with work and business, screens, food, exercise, you name it. So what good is purpose? Well, research has shown that living a life with purpose enhances well-being, such as greater life satisfaction, greater self-compassion, which is kindness and grace for yourself, and a feeling of more positive emotions. It also increases our resilience. Even if you aren't enjoying yourself in your circumstance, you can still be fulfilled and look forward to the future with more hope and optimism. And it decreases ill-being by preventing and correcting psychological ill-being, such as less stress, anxiety, and even depression. Living our purpose feels good. It helps us invest energy in life pursuits and meaningful relationships. Who doesn't want that? So for those of you who may be thinking, How can I even begin to know or learn about my purpose? Well, one way you can begin is to look at activities that you not only enjoy, but are passionate about. This can give us insight into what our purpose is. Passion is a strong inclination that drives us to invest time and energy in something that we find important. And when you ask yourself reflective questions like, why do I find this activity important? And why do I enjoy it? Well, by answering these questions, that's how you begin to get closer to finding your purpose. There's even such a thing called harmonious passion, and that's when your passion puts you in a flow state, which is when you are fully immersed in your activity and all else fades away. Time, people, the world. It's effortless. It's deeply nourishing and it brings you peace. Now, if you're unsure about what you're passionate about, it's okay. Many of us actually are unsure, and that's because life is fluid and things change inside of us and around us. And unless we self-reflect from time to time, we won't know. So how do we find out? Well, one way is taking a look at your values and why identifying your core values are so important to elevating your self-awareness and restoring your peace. The core values are the fundamental beliefs you have about your life, and they reflect what's important to you and what you want more of in your life. They can also remind you of who you are and who you are meant to be in the world. Often, though, we have a hard time figuring out our values or even how to describe them. However, the key to determining your values is to ensure they are yours and not someone else's. And if you want to find out what your core values are, there are plenty of value questionnaires available on the internet. Beliefs. So a belief is an attitude or a conviction about the truth of some idea or concept. Generally, our beliefs are of basic concepts, things around us that are consistent and things we rarely question. They can often be shared by your family and circle of friends, and we tend to apply beliefs to our memories, our current experiences, and to our future as they help us understand the world around us. But also our beliefs are subconscious, meaning that we're not aware of them, and they are acquired through two pathways. One is called dispositional beliefs, and these are beliefs we never really think about because they occur through the process of living. And the other is core beliefs, which we actively contemplate and something we tend to align our values with. So let me ask, do you think beliefs are helpful? In most settings, yes. But you can also lead to errors in judgment or negative thought patterns of ourselves, such as the belief that we're not smart enough, we're not successful enough, perhaps we're not athletic enough. Growing up, I thought I wasn't smart enough and that there was something wrong with me. This was my father's mantra of me and ingrained at a very young age. So it became my mantra growing up. And the most common thing I would say to myself was, "What's wrong with you, Sandra?" My grades were mostly average throughout my schooling years. And when I finished high school, even though I received my certificate of completion, my overall mark was 37 out of 100. I failed. Well, this was my thought and belief at the age of 18. At the time, it also reaffirmed my father's belief of me that there was something wrong with me and that I wasn't smart enough to succeed in life. I felt deep shame and I was embarrassed. And when all my friends shared their marks about passing and being accepted into university, I lied about my result. And at the time, I believed my friends would no longer want to be my friends if they knew the truth. And I couldn't actually bear anyone else thinking that there was something wrong with me. However, lying to my friends and my family further compounded my shame because I didn't want to lie to the people I loved. So this strong self-limiting belief partnered with me into most of my adult life. And the reason why I use the word partnered now is because that self-limiting belief isn't my identity. I thought it was when I was younger. So every time I was challenged or failed at something that required my intelligence, it just reinforced that belief. It was someone else's belief based on their own limitations and biases. It was someone else's opinion. It wasn't truth. but I'd allowed it to rule over my life, and I would second guess myself in everything I worked on, spending an enormous number of hours thinking it had to be perfect. I also couldn't make important decisions quickly. I was afraid I didn't have all the information I needed and that I could get it wrong. I can see how people could hold themselves back on opportunities, being afraid, thinking they aren't deserving or worthy. I can tell you, this belief was exhausting, and at times it would cripple me mentally, emotionally, and physically. I just couldn't find my peace being in this headspace. Now, it's known that you can't control what thoughts come into your mind, but you can control the strength of them. We have the ability to weaken those negative thoughts and self-limiting beliefs. And there is a method, which is another talk altogether. However, right now you can start by choosing what thoughts you want to shine your spotlight on. Those thoughts that serve you, shine that spotlight. And those that don't serve you, limit the light. Remember, our thoughts are either expending our energy or replenishing it. Mindset. Let's talk about fixed versus growth mindset. Who here believes that they have a growth mindset? Well, most of us do. However, even though we think we might, a lot of us can still operate in a fixed mindset. Mindsets are not black and white. You can have a growth mindset while still having some fixed ideas. We often have more of a growth mindset in one aspect of our lives, and while having more of a fixed mindset in another. We are all born with the innate tendency to want to learn and improve, and each of our brains has the lifelong ability to change, reorganize, and even adapt. However, effort needs to be put in, and we need to make mistakes. We need to struggle and receive constructive feedback. How we perceive and respond to our mistakes and struggles strongly relies on our beliefs. Do we think that making a mistake is a sign of failure? Or do we see it as an opportunity for growth? I thought most of my life mistakes were a sign of failure. And gosh, did that fixed mindset wreak havoc on the thoughts and feelings I had about myself, but also how my body responded. I suffered from frequent stomach and reproductive pain, headaches, migraines, anxiety, and even panic attacks. Our mindset primarily sits in our subconscious, so we need to ask ourselves the right questions to become more self-aware. And this allows us to look at our mindset in different aspects on our lives and begin to promote a growth mindset in those areas. Our mindset is one of the most important beliefs that influence our achievements. So what is a growth mindset? A growth mindset indicates that you value effort and process. Making a mistake or not hitting a target just means you need to try again. That's it. Try a different strategy. Try maybe a little bit harder. Understand that it's okay. Mistakes offer you an opportunity to grow, and it exercises your grit and tenacity. And this allows you to persist when facing obstacles, which then increases your chance of a successful goal. For those of us that are perfectionists, let's instead strive for excellence and not perfection. It will take us so much further and be far more calming and enjoyable. So let's have a look at the advantages of having a growth mindset. Willingness to learn, or valuing the opportunity to learn when making mistakes. Mistakes are okay. Understanding and accepting that effort is required to grow, even if you run into an obstacle or fail at it. Struggling with something gives your brain the activity it needs to adapt and become more proficient and efficient. So that's a good thing. Finding inspiration in the success of others, not being competitive or jealous. Embracing challenges rather than running from them. Accepting constructive criticism. And having a desire to learn, which improves motivation and achievement. By persevering in the face of failures and seeing these failures or obstacles as moments to learn from and improve upon, This raises your self-awareness. Now, the adaptation of a growth mindset can be life-changing, changing how you view challenges, criticism, obstacles, effort, and even others' successes. It can be really liberating, and you might find that you feel better about yourself and the activities that you engage in. Now, in contrast, a fixed mindset indicates a way of thinking based on the thought that I am who I am, or I've always been this way. How many of you actually say that to yourself or to others? So whatever you are measuring about yourself, for example, how smart we are or how fit we are, as soon as we make a mistake, we perceive that thinking as true. It also suggests that working hard at something signifies a lack of talent, which isn't the case. This way of thinking can lead us to give up or avoid everything. And that might challenge us because it may lead to mistakes or failures. I'm going to show you a diagram now, which is a growth versus fixed mindset. Here is a growth versus fixed mindset diagram. So as you can see at the beginning, you've got challenges, and on the top line, they're the fixed mindset prompts, and on the bottom are the growth mindset prompts. And this is how we actually look at the behaviors that come out from our thinking. So whether you have a fixed or a growth mindset, the challenges, do you avoid challenges because that's derived from a fixed mindset, or do you embrace a challenge? Which then it can flow into an obstacle. So you've just been challenged and now you've hit an obstacle. What do? Do you give up easily, or do you persist in the face of setbacks? You know, by actually persisting in the face of setbacks, it's going to require effort. So do you see the effort as fruitless because you think someone who should be more talented is, going to be successful at that? Or do you look at this and go, this is kind of a path to mastery. This is me. If I practice this and I put the effort in, I can get to that level. And then the criticism. Do you ignore useful negative feedback? I would look at that as constructive feedback. Or do you learn from the constructive feedback that you are provided? And then the success of others. When that comes into play and others can be more successful, do you feel threatened? Or do you find lessons and inspiration and carve out time to talk to those people and ask what they did? This is the flow to getting to that achievement. And you may look at this diagram and see at some point where you commonly stop if you have parts of a fixed mindset around that particular activity. So let's think about what might trigger a fixed mindset. We may have some areas of life where we have a strong growth mindset and others where we still find fixed beliefs lurking. We're going to do a little exercise. So I want you to think about some of the things in your life that might trigger a fixed mindset. This exercise can help alert you in situations where you need to make a conscious effort to cultivate and embrace a growth mindset. So there are 4 common triggers. There's more than that, but these are the 4 most common. And the first trigger that can trigger a fixed mindset is having to work hard. Do you ever get overwhelmed by tasks that require a long, sustained effort? Do you give up when a training plan seems long and hard, or when your home or office seem to descend into chaos in the evenings, or a passion project just seems to always exist in the middle phase and never get any closer to being done? Do you compare yourself to others and feel discouraged that other people seem to be putting in less effort to achieve the same goals? If this describes you, you're probably holding on to society's reinforced fixed belief that being gifted or naturally talented means that no matter how much work you put in, some people are just more talented than you are. The second trigger, facing setbacks. If you fail at one task in a series of tasks, example, eating a handful of biscuits on the first day of your dieting program or fitness regime, or you skip a run because it's cold and rainy, do you stop? Do you stop altogether because you feel like you have already failed? Do you look for and find excuses not to do the things you know will get you closer to your goal. Such as, do you let the weather get in the way of your training, or use your unappreciative boss or annoying colleague to give up on an important task or project to not produce your best work? Does every setback feel fatal? If this describes you, you may be viewing each setback as a roadblock to success. You see short-term mistakes as failures rather than learning opportunities. And if you have a growth mindset, a setback isn't a big deal. You get back on track and you focus forward. Remind yourself of the long-term goal. It takes the pressure off and gives the space for growth and working through those struggles. You're in the journey, and this is all part of it. The third trigger, receiving negative feedback. Do you react strongly to critique? Do you feel hurt or insulted, even angry? Does negative feedback pose a threat to your identity? For example, if someone critiques an aspect of your job or parenting style or fitness performance, does it feel as if they are saying you're not good enough, so you're not a good worker or a good parent or a good athlete? Do you ever experience negative feedback as proof that you're not good enough? If this describes you, you probably view each misstep or mistake as a permanent reflection on your value or self-worth. Remember that your performance is not fixed, nor is it your identity, but rather is fluid and can be improved through effort and learning. Having a growth mindset means you can listen to feedback, learn from it, apply the feedback and suggestions to get better at what you do. The fourth trigger, seeing success in others. Do you feel intimidated by people who are more advanced than you in their journey? Do you often negatively compare yourself to others? Do you feel that they must have a natural talent or a genius that you do not? Does seeing success in others make you feel insecure and like you will never be as good as they are? If this describes you, then you may not be acknowledging the amount of time and effort other people put into their successes. There is no reason you can't get to a similar level if you put in your own effort, but it's got to be your journey, your dreams, and your goals. We all have fixed mindset triggers, and moving toward a more growth mindset is a journey. So to recap in how to begin changing your fixed mindset to a more growth mindset, 1, identify where you are in life and have a growth mindset versus fixed mindset. Then you can identify your fixed mindset triggers. By doing that, it allows you to understand the reaction of what you do when it comes to your behavior, your persona when triggered. You can even give it a name. This actually elevates your self-awareness. It's not you, it's part of who you are, but it isn't actually your part of your identity. So give it a name. Talk to your fixed mindset persona. What's the language that you use? How do you speak to yourself? I can't. It's just not me. A simple and powerful way to change your language right now is called the power of yet. It's a great way to reframe your self-limiting thoughts. It can be used when you're struggling and finding yourself being negative about your abilities. Remind yourself that you haven't mastered that skill yet. So you could say things like, I haven't been able to train consistently yet. I'm not experienced at this yet. I can't seem to connect with my teen kids yet. Being vulnerable is so hard. I can't do it yet. I'm going to take you through some self-awareness insights now, and something that's actually called the energy factor. When we think about our energy that we expend every day, we probably don't give a lot of thought to it. By the end of the day, we actually feel just exhausted. We feel fatigued. I've heard so many of my clients express that this is how they're feeling on a day-to-day basis. So let's just raise our self-awareness and think, what are we doing in our day? So the first thing that you can do is make a list of your tasks. So if you're someone who plans out your week or even plans out your day, Write down what you want to achieve in that day. And when you write down those tasks, just give a moment of pause and think about how much energy each of those tasks actually take. And you can write it down in a percentage. So for example, if you're a parent and you're getting your children out the door in the morning, you've either got school children or very young children going to daycare, the effort of that in your mornings might take 20% of your energy. I know for me it does. I have 2 teenage sons, and it's definitely 20% of my energy before I've even started my day, getting them out the door to school. So I'll write 20% next to that. And then the next thing is, what do you do after that? If you have to travel to work, that can also expend some energy. And then your working day, or the day, whatever you might be doing fulfilled throughout your day, will expend energy. So going to work, it might be 40, 50%. You record down the percentage of how much energy over the day you think it's taken you. And it can be helpful to actually do this just after your task, because then you have a bit more of a gauge around it. When you record this, just know that 100%, when you reach that 100%, that is a full productive day. Most of us go over 100% and then wonder why we're depleted and fatigued. Or we set ourselves up for failure right from the beginning and we say, I want to achieve all these things today and get them in. And if I don't get it in, I'm obviously not being productive. But what we don't realize is we've probably stacked our tasks and have an energy expenditure of like 150%, 200%. So just to be mindful about your energy factor will help you a lot and will help you be more realistic in placing what kind of tasks you want to achieve in a day. So by the end, you are successful. The next one of these valuable self-awareness insights is a yes is also a no. So what you say yes to in your day, you equally say no to something else. So you might be saying yes to loved ones, you might be saying yes to work, but remember, you only have a finite amount of energy per day, and for every time you say yes, it takes you away from something else, which is a no. So if you're saying yes to working back late, you're potentially saying no to spending time with your children or your partner, or doing something for yourself, like going to the gym or going for a run or socializing with friends. So every time you say yes, remember there is an equal ideal of you actually saying no to something else. And we tend to say no first to ourselves. We say no a lot to ourselves. So creating healthy boundaries is very important. And by doing that, you will start to realize that replenishment within yourself by reducing the amount of no's you come back to on yourself will help you. Which leads me on to the interval life cycle. If we look at life as an interval style training, so you reach peaks and then troughs and then peaks and then troughs, and you go and understand that life, you're going to be very busy at some points of times, and then sometimes it's busy, but it's manageable. A lot of us tend to live life in a sprint phase, but life is an endurance journey. So you can't be sprinting for long periods of time before you hit the wall, before you do fatigue, before you get frustrated, before something goes wrong even with your health. So when we're thinking about the interval life cycle, there is peak performance. So if you know a project is coming up, if you think that there is some busy time with the family coming up, or there's some major deadline that you have to work on, know that that is expending extra energy. Classify that as the busy time. Okay, so that might go for a few days, a week, a few weeks, even a month. And then the other side of where we're actually coming down after that deadline or after that accomplishment is the operate and restore. So this is your resting phase. This is super important to replenish the stores that you've already used, those energy stores. So you're reaching your peak, you know you're running 100 miles an hour, but as soon as that deadline hits, you have to make an intentional effort to recover. And that might mean, and everyone's different, but that might mean going, right, for the next 3 days or 4 days, I'm going to run at 60% capacity. I need to slow right down and just do the absolute bare minimum. I might have to say no a bit more to other people during that period to replenish my stores. but that is how you actually are going to build up your energy levels again. So when the next peak comes, you can run your race. And you can run your race with sanity, with calmness. Yes, it's still going to be challenging, but it's actually so much more enjoyable. So thank you for today. And I'd probably just like to end with something. And this is something that I commonly say, that I profoundly believe that our lives are written in chapters. And the point is to keep growing and evolving. So embrace the uncertainty and enjoy the beauty of becoming. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Sandra. That was amazing. I'm sure that people are nodding their heads with me right now and saying the same thing. There were so many nuggets in there. And yeah, I definitely know that you've changed lots of lives today. So jump in the chat, everyone. Let Sandra know what it was that you got out of the session, what the insights were, and let's just give her a huge thank you for imparting such great insights to all of us today in the summit. Well, we're going to take another short break and then come back with our next speaker. Make sure that you rehydrate, you go to the bathroom, you do what it is you need to do, and be ready, because just like this session, the next one is going to be jam-packed, full of empowering information and gold nuggets. I'll see you then.